I'd like to thank Juliet Peters of Framework Legal for joining us on this Delta Business Bite about legal landmines, also known as contract gotchas.
Termination clauses. So tell us about the termination.
So the termination clause, again, this is something sometimes that's skipped over in contracts, but you should know under what circumstances can I or the other party get out of this deal. A lot of times you'll see just material if there is a breach in the lease or any kind of contract and it's material, right? In a lease, you hardly ever get out of a lease. So anyway, that's another story for a different day. But from a material standpoint, you want to know, hey, what's important to me as the provider of services, and what's important to me is the business who's buying the services. When do I want to be able to get to end the contract? Sometimes people say, hey, we should both freely be able to walk away from this with 60-day notice. I have a lot of clients who don't really like, they want to have it be a good business relationship and they don't want it to be just a problem. But a lot of business owners want to count on this as a contract, right? So they want to have it as a term. They don't want to have you get out of it for just any reason. So it's really important for you to kind of lay out, what does that mean? What conditions that change might make you say, hey, this is not a good fit anymore. And if it's not a good fit, how do we sort of exit from the contract? That's really important. The other part of this that you'll see in contracts that's also really critical is you will see what happens if there is a termination. This is often overlooked and it's a disaster if it is. So say you are buying widgets and you get stuff shipped to your company every month from a supplier, and you have a deal with the supplier that you don't pay for them, right, until they're sold. Let's say it's like a flooring agreement of some sort, something like that, right? Well, what happens if the contract terminates? What do you do with all that excess inventory that you have, right? That you didn't really buy for, it was on terms, whatever the situation is. You got to think past not just the contract or what we call the four corners of the document itself, but also to what effect is that going to have if the contract terminates? What do we need to do from a practical standpoint under this contract to make sure everyone goes back to the beginning? So for example, if you're an agent of some sort, right, and you have an exclusive territory, you need to be able to return at the end of the contract all of your marketing materials that you got from this company. So it's what's the next step once you terminate an agreement? What do you have to do to put the parties, back to sort of the position they were in before they went down this road? So always remember, even when there's termination, there should be something in the agreement that says, hey, here's what I need to do after the termination occurs or after the contract expires on its terms.
Yeah, and this is critical in any, and when somebody's buying and selling, because you want the seller out of there at a certain point, and you want those reps and warranties to end at a certain point.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and we're going to talk about that. There's a really important provision in most contracts called survivability, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes, and that's really important.